Hello. So today I'm going to be showing you guys how I personally plan a flight. Now the method I use is a little bit crude, to be honest, but it is a way of kind of manually planning a flight. You know, it's not just entering a departure airport and an arrival airport and then getting a computer to figure it out. It is something that you kind of actively figure out yourself. So I thought it might be interesting to do a video on it. So the first step I would recommend is to start up the simulator, set up the weather and everything how you want it, and then actually start the sim. So get in the plane and be sat at the airport. Now you can see I'm going to be doing the second leg of my European tour in my Learjet 45. And I've got the plane kind of powered on at the moment, but the engines are not running, so this is effectively a turnaround state for the plane. And this is typically when the pilots or the flight crew would be sort of planning the flight ahead, basically. So the second step, once you've got the plane sat at the airport, is to figure out which runway you're going to be leaving from. Now there's two ways you can do this. If you're at an airport you're familiar with and you know the sort of the winds or how the winds are acting at the moment, you'll probably realise which runway is the active runway. But if you're at an airport you're not familiar with, then the easiest way is to simply listen to the ATIS report, which is what I'm going to do just now. Okay, so you heard just at the end there that it seems to be the 24 runways that are in use at the moment. So we're going to be departing from runway 24. It might be either 24 right or 24 left. So once you know which runway you're going to be departing from, just make a small note of that on a piece of paper or something, and then we'll move on to step 3. So what I like to do is I like to get a general idea of where I'm flying. Now I use this website called SkyVector. Of course there's other websites available, this is just one I personally use. So you want to just get an idea of the general direction you're going to be flying in. So if we have a look at this map here, we've got Mallorca up here, Palma Airport, LEPA is the code, is up there, and then we're going to be flying to Gibraltar, which is down here on the south coast of Spain. So you can see that we're going to be flying in predominantly a southwest direction. Now the next step is to try and find some charts for the airport you're going to be departing from. Now I simply go onto Google, and what I do is I type in the 4-letter code for the airport and then just follow it up with the words charts. So Mallorca is LEPA, and then I just type in charts after that, and it will you'll get a few decent results here. So click on the first website, scroll down a bit, and you can see that we have a folder which has got a few different charts. Now different websites have different way of presenting their charts to you, so you might need just a little bit of common sense to try and find the right ones there. But you can see they've got a very handy little folder here which says SID, Standard Instrument Departure Charts. So we'll click on that, and you can see that we have 3 sort of files or 3 charts there. Now as we listen to on the ATIS, we're going to be departing from runway 24, so that'll be this file here. So we can get it as a PDF, so I'll just open that up. The chart opens up on my second monitor, so once Adobe Reader wants to play ball, I'll move it across. There we go. And here we have the departure chart for Palma de Mallorca. So let's zoom in a little bit. Now we want to be following a departure which takes us sort of in the general direction we want to be flying in, and you can see that we've got one here which seems to be almost perfect, taking us in a southwest direction, this Baver 1A departure. So that's definitely the one that we want to use. So now we know the SIDs that we want to fly. What we need to do is we need to just study the chart a little bit to figure out how to fly the departure accurately. So we're going to be taking off in a southwesterly direction, so going this way. Now you can see the first waypoint that we're going to be hitting is this one here, and if we have a look at the little info box, we can see that the first waypoint is called a back axe. Now it gives us the GPS coordinates, and then it says JOA 236/12. So JOA is the VOR station that we're going to be using to navigate to this waypoint. So if we have a look here, that's the Palma San Juan, which is a VOR station, and the frequency for the VOR station is 117.7. So you want to make a note of that, because that's going to be the first VOR station that we'll be using to navigate. And then you can see here, if we have a look at the back-ax information again, so we need to be flying a radial of 236 away from JOA VOR station, and the waypoint is at a distance of 12 nautical miles. So that's how we navigate to that waypoint. If we follow on, you can see the next waypoint is Eduli. Again, we have the GPS coordinates, and again we're going to be using the JOA VOR station, this time on a radial of 238 degrees, and the distance from the station is 18 nautical miles. So you can see that there. Now, one other thing to be aware of when you're looking at sort of the departures close to an airport is that you might have constraints sometimes. Now you can see that we have a back-ax 2A kind of label here, and 4000 with a line above and below it, and then it's got a line here pointing to this waypoint. So that I would interpret that as saying that we need to be at this waypoint at 4000 feet, not above and not below. So you might want to make a quick note of that, because when we take off, I'm going to be enabling the autopilot, and what I'm going to be doing is setting in 4000 feet as our initial altitude. So once we hit that waypoint, we'll be hitting it bang on 4000 feet. Now if we keep going down, you can see that we're going to be following the rest of the departure in pretty much a straight line. Now it gives us the kind of main navigation here, which is a radial of 249 degrees. However, the VOR station is different. We're going to be flying from CDP. Now, where do we find that? Well, generally, if you think of radials and VOR stations, a radial is basically a straight line, which starts at the VOR station and extends away. So if you're not sure where to look for the VOR station, you simply follow the line, and you should find the VOR station in a straight line with this kind of navigation track here. So if we follow that back up, you can see that the VOR station is actually in the northeast of the island. It's this Cap de Pera VOR, and you can see that the frequency for that VOR station is 112.9. So you want to make a note of that as well, because that's the second VOR station that we're going to use to navigate. I hope that makes sense to everyone there. So we're going to be following a radial of 249 degrees from that Cap Dera VOR up there, and we're basically going to be straight lining it all the way down to this Bavor waypoint. Now, interestingly enough, it actually gives us kind of two kind of references for VORs there, but if you have a look, we got CDP there, a radial of 249 degrees, and you can see this at a distance of 137.6 nautical miles from the VOR station. So that's kind of the end of the departure there. Now we do have this Octi waypoint as well, but it's on a radial of 249 degrees. It's a straight line pretty much. So once I hit this Eduli waypoint, I'm not going to worry about navigating to Okiti. I'm just going to sort of focus on getting to Bavor, because it's as I said, it's pretty much a direct straight line between Eduli and Bavor there. And you can see that's the final waypoint. So once we hit Bavor, we should be expecting to be flying onto a high altitude airway at that point, because it's 137 miles away from the airport. That's once we pass Eduli, we're going to be sort of beginning our climb up to our cruise altitude after that. So chances are when we hit Bavor, we're going to be climbing onto an airway, whether it be low altitude or high altitude. But given the distance away from the airport, it's most likely to be a high altitude airway. So to find out how we continue with the rest of the flight, we'll head back over to SkyVector. There we go. Now SkyVector is quite good because it has these buttons up here, you have world low and world high, which shows you your low altitude airways and also high altitude airways. So if we go back to Mallorca, what we want to do is we want to try and find that Bavor waypoint. Now we've got the Mallorca VOR there. You can see just next to that we actually have the Ajuli waypoint that we could see there on the SID before. So if we just keep following that in the southwest direction, oh look, we have Okiti there and then Bavor there. So the departure pretty much takes us in line with this UM603 airway, and you can see that it's flying, judging by the arrow there, it's sort of a one direction only airway. So once we hit Bavor, as I said, we should be close, if not at, our cruise altitude by the time we hit that. So we're going to be climbing onto the airway UM603. Now we're going to be flying in a southwest direction, so basically you want to try and follow airways which keep taking you in the southwest direction. So you can see the next waypoint that we're going to hit is going to be Gervu, and if we keep following that, you can see we've got a slight turn there, and it's going to take us again on UM603. So even though there's a turn, it's still the same airway, and it's going to take us into the Alicante VOR station. So what you want to do is make a note of that. So the VOR station for Alicante is 114.65. Now if we zoom in here, you can see that we get the radial for this UM603. So the radial from the Alicante VOR station is 056 degrees. However, we're going to be flying it towards the station. Radials give you a radial is always expressed in the direction going away from the VOR station. So basically, when we're flying towards a VOR station, we want what we call a reciprocal. So basically, you either add or subtract 180 degrees to get the direction going towards the station. So if you take 056 and add 180 degrees to that, we'll be flying an inbound kind of radial, so to speak, of 236 degrees. So you want to make a note of that and figure that out as well, because when we hit Bavor, I'm going to be retuning my radials to Alicante and setting my VOR indicator to a sort of a track of 236 degrees. You'll see later on in the flight how I do that, and you'll see, and hopefully when I do it, it'll all kind of make sense there. Okay, so after Alicante, if you want to keep heading in the southwest direction, you can see that the next best airway is this UN851 airway, and you can see if we have a look at the Alicante there, it'll be a radial of 246 degrees away from Alicante. So as we approach Alicante, we'll be flying a kind of a navigation track of 236 degrees, and then once we pass over the VOR station, we'll be turning on to 246 degrees and flying away from that. So basically it's going to be a straight line, UN851, UN851, UN851. Now you're going to be passing over a few other waypoints here. I'm not really going to bother making a note of those. Usually I only kind of make notes of the VOR stations that I'm going to be flying between. And sometimes if there's like a turn, if I need to turn from one airway onto another at a waypoint, I'll make a note of that airway as well. But usually I just kind of make a note of the VOR stations. So you can see that UN851 takes us all the way into Malaga, the Malaga VOR. So again, it's a VOR that you want to make a note of. So that'll be 112.0. So as we're flying along this airway, at some point what I'll do is switch from flying away from the Alicante and switch over to flying towards Malaga. Now again, we're going to be flying in an inbound, or we're going to be flying on the 064 radial. Because we're flying towards the VOR station, we want the reciprocal, so 064 plus 180 is 244 degrees. So you might want to make a note of that again, because the aircraft might need an ever so slight adjustment to fly that accurately. Okay, and then once we get to Malaga there, if we have look a bit further down, you can see we actually have Gibraltar Airport there, and there's no direct airway between the two, but the Malaga VOR is relatively close, so once we hit the Malaga VOR, I would expect that we would begin our descent at the Malaga VOR there, and then at that point we're going to be looking at trying to find a star or an approach for Gibraltar. Now that's not something I'm going to cover in this video. I'm going to have a part 2 where I cover the whole, figuring out which star to use and then which approach to use. So I'm going to kind of end the flight plan at the moment at Malaga, and then in part 2, during the cruise, I'm going to look at how you find the star and then the right approach for the airport that you're arriving at. So what I'm going to do just now is I'm just going to kind of overlay the flight plan there. So going back to the start, we're going to be departing Palma de Mallorca on runway 24, either right or left, most likely. We're going to be following the Baver 1A SID to the Baver waypoints, and then we're going to be joining the UM603 airway, and we're going to be following that all the way to the Alicante VOR. After we pass over the Alicante VOR, we're going to be joining the UN851 airway. Is that right? 851, yep, sorry, just had to double check that. We're going to be following that airway all the way down to the Malaga VOR, and then from there, and then as I said, during the cruise, we'll be figuring out our kind of arrival, so we'll kind of add on the rest of the flight plan as we figure that out. So, going to jump back into the sim now. So, that's pretty much the flight planned from departure all the way up to cruise. So what I'm going to do just now, if you're just interested in how I plan the flight and how I figure out where I'm going to be navigating, what I'm going to do is, if the video is uploaded, I'm going to put an annotation on the screen now. So if you want to see the sort of second part of the whole flight planning, you can click on that or click in the link in the description below. For those of you who are interested in seeing how I set up the radials for the actual departure, what I'm going to do just now is start up the engines and then just taxi over to the end of the runway and then do all of the setup at the end of the runway there. So what I'm going to do is just cut the video here, and I will see you guys, if you're staying, I'm going to see you guys at the end of the runway in 2 seconds. Okay, so here we are at the end of runway 24 right. So just to recap what we're going to be doing. So the first waypoint that we're going to be flying to is going to be back axe here, which is on a radial of 236 degrees away from JOA. So let's tune in to JOA now. So that's 117.7. So that'll be our 117. Oops, no, go up. There we go. 17.7. So you can see it's got JOA there, and it was a radial of 236. So what I'm going to do is turn the where do I turn my? I've forgotten how to fly this plane. Oh my goodness, I've actually forgotten the course. There we go. Flipping heck. Okay, there we go. So it's 236. So once we get up into the air, we can worry about, flying that perfectly in line. I suspect that once we get onto the runway, that will all line up quite nicely, because you can see we're only 0.2 nautical miles away from the VOR station, so the line is going to move a lot for a small distance that we move on the ground, because we're closer to the VOR station. And then once we hit a distance of 12 nautical miles, then we need to fly a radial of 238 degrees to Eduli. By that point, we need to be up at 4,000 feet. Now, if you have a look here, you can see that I've set 4,000 feet into the autopilot already. So shortly after takeoff, I'll be enabling that. And then once we hit Eduli, then we will be switching onto the second VOR station, which was I can't remember the name of it, but it was CDP, which was on a frequency of 112.9. So what I'm going to do is set that in as the sort of secondary one, or set in that set in that second VOR station now, so that I don't have to worry about tuning the radios during the flight or during the departure. So I'm just going to flick that to the active frequency just to make sure it finds it. CDP, perfect. So we'll flick it back onto the Mallorca one. So I've got my 2 VRWAR stations ready to go basically. So the only thing I need to adjust during the departure, so during the flight as I depart, is just adjusting the course and then flying to the waypoints and just double checking the distances there. So let's get on with the flight. So let's see. I believe I've done everything there. So we'll get the lights on now. Parking brake off. And we'll get rolling onto the runway. So I've got my speed set to 230. Altitude is set to 4,000. So yeah, so once I'm up and once I'm happy that the plane is climbing safely, then I will enable the autopilot there. I'll arm the spoilers there. So just do a rolling takeoff, so engines are equal, everything is good. And we'll work the speed up. To be honest, I haven't figured out what the V speeds would be, so I'm just gonna pull back when I think I'm going fast enough, and we should be okay there. There we go. So gear up. Let's get the altitude, the speed, and the autopilot. And I'll set the heading hold on for now. Usually it's good practice when you're taking off to set the autopilot to the runway heading. So that's all set there, and what I'm going to do now is everything is good. I'm going to set the nav hold now. So that should now follow the radial pretty much perfectly, although that's quite a steep turn, but the autopilot should sort itself out there. So now we're flying away on a radial of 236 from the Mallorca VOR station. So once we hit the back-ax waypoint, so I know I've hit that if the plane flies the radial properly, I'll know I'll be over that waypoint at a distance of 12 nautical miles. If we double check that there, you can see back-ax 236 degrees at 12 nautical miles. So once I hit 12 nautical miles down here on the nav display, then I'm going to change the course to 238 and then follow that out to 18 nautical miles for the next waypoint. So we're halfway there already. I'm going to disarm the spoiler and I'm going to retract the flaps. And the plane, you can see that we're already up at 3,300 feet, so we're going to be at 4,000 feet, which was that kind of constraint there for the first waypoint. We're going to be up at that in good time. You can see the plane start to level off for that. So all we're doing now is waiting for 12 nautical miles. And then I'll roll the course around to 38 degrees, and then that should take us towards the Eduli waypoint, which is the second waypoint on the SID. I'll bring that up now actually, so you can see Eduli is 238 at 18. And if you want to cross-check it, I believe if we go into this, go to nearest, Doesn't look like it's going to have it there. Never mind. Okay, so there we go. Just 2 degrees there. 238. And then what I'm going to do is, once the plane is settled on this radial, is I'm actually going to change it over to heading hold, because I need to change the VOR station that I'm sort of navigating from. What I'm going to do is just change it to heading hold, because I don't want to. Because if I change the radio station, the aircraft's going to jump, or the signal's going to jump to that other VOR station, and the plane might freak out and do a sharp turn, and I don't want that to happen. So you can see we're already at 15. We're heading out to 18. So the autopilot's probably not going to figure out the. It's probably not going to figure out the radial properly there. That's close enough. You know. No, we're not going to break any rules by doing that. So I've now got the plane on heading hold just to keep it stable. So I'll change the nav1 frequency there. You can see we flicked over to CDP, and the radial that we're flying away from that is 249. So I'm going to change the course around to that now. And I maybe shouldn't have done that, because now I don't know my distance to the Mallorca VOR, but you can see that we're going to intercept that kind of final part of the SID pretty shortly. There you can see we're sort of going to hit it at a shallow angle. So I'm just going to wait for that to get a little bit closer to centre. And then what I'll do is I'll just hit nav now, and you can see that even though we're going through clouds, just keep an eye on the artificial horizon there. You can see that the plane's turning slightly to the right, just to pick up that that radial. So now we are just about here on the departure somewhere, I would imagine. So now we basically follow this radial all the way out to a distance of 137.6 nautical miles. What I'll do at this point as well is start the plane climbing up to a cruise altitude, which I'll say will just be 33,000 feet, just a random number there. And bump the speed up a little bit as well to about. I'll just keep it at 250 for now, because that's sort of the speed limit below 10,000 feet, and then once we go beyond 10,000 feet, I'll change the speed as necessary. And there you go. That's pretty much the whole departure there. So what I'm going to do is sort of cut this video here, and yes, I'm going to end this video here as well, actually. So as I said, there's going to be a part 2 where I'll be cruising along, and I'll talk about sort of how to figure out the star and the approach into your arrival airport. So I hope to see you guys there. Many thanks for watching, and I will catch you later.